Hi, this is Shubham, and in this video, we will learn different types of cell references. So, let us start. So, we will discuss 6 different types of cell references, and let me write it for you. Cell references types. So, in Microsoft Excel, as you know, that every cell has an address. And when we write any kind of a formula or a function, we used to define correct type of cell reference. If we don't define correct type of cell references, sometimes it might get us an error, but most of the times it fetches the answer. But that answer is not correct. So this particular topic is very important to understand that whenever we learn any application fundamentals, they should be strong. And when we go to the advanced level and putting them in the scenarios, our logic should not be weak. So this topic is very important. There are 6 different types of cell references, and let me write them and also give you the example. So the first one is relative, and second one is absolute. The third one is kind of a mixed, where half of the address is relative and half of the address is mixed. Oh, sorry, absolute. Then we have fourth category, which is the 3D references. Then fifth is the structured, and number 6 is external references. These are 6 most common references you will see when you use Microsoft Excel. Now, what are those examples where we can imagine that how it looks like? So the first one is, let's pick cell A1. It will be a simple, relative and absolute. It comes with a dollar sign and mixed. Mixed has a 2 types. Either we lock the column or we lock the row. So it looks like something this first type and second type is this one. The 3D references is a kind, let's suppose if we insert a sheet and if I write a number in D4 which is 100, and if I go back to sheet 2 and I want to take a number from the sheet 3 and from multiple sheets and a same cell address. So it will look like this in a 3D reference. Structural reference is those reference where we convert our normal ranges into a table format. So you will get an idea when you will see my recorded video on tables. So when we select any kind of data and we convert them into a table, so it creates a structured reference. And how it looks like, let us get an idea in this video. First, a table name. Then a column name comes inside a square bracket. Then external cell references. For example, if you are creating any kind of a financial model or an AMIS report or a financial report or a dashboard, so sometimes users link all those numbers from a different Excel workbook. So these are called the external cell references. For example, if I open a new workbook and if I go back to my previous Excel workbook and I come back to again the new workbook. So these kind of references we look at into is first it shows the workbook name, then sheet name, and then absolute cell references. So these are external cell addresses. So these are most common 6 different types of cell references types which we need to understand. We need to understand them very strongly so that whenever we write any formula function or even on the back end in data validation or conditional formatting, we put the logic. We should know that which kind of reference will give us the correct results. Now let's go to the example for relative and absolute in this particular video, and for the remaining we cover the topics in the next module regarding the formulas and functions. I will code all those references there. So let's get started with the first relative and absolute example and let's compare them. So let me just create a data for a relative and absolute. For example, if we have some numbers and we have numbers like 100, 200, 300, 400, just an imaginary numbers to give you an example. And let's suppose we want to calculate the square for each of the numbers and for the absolute. And for the absolute, let's suppose we want to calculate 10% of each of the number and get the desired result or amount here. Alright, so how to calculate a square basically? If I multiply the G4 with the same cell, I will get this square, right? And how to copy and paste? You can select this output cell and shift down arrow key and press the Ctrl D button. This is the first strategy to copy paste downwards. The other thing is that what you can do is, because it's an adjacent data altogether, so you are active on the output cell and this particular dot which is on the active cell on the right bottom is called fill handle. So you can just double click on it and it will copy and paste downwards. And last of the strategy to copy paste is press Ctrl C on the output cell and then select the range. And then press Ctrl V, right? There are 3 different strategies. You can adopt any one. So we have calculated the square, and if I go back into the cell, you can just double click to get into the editing mode, or you can press F2 to get into the editing mode where you can change again if you want to do some changes. So here it is the formula. It's not a function because it will be called as formula because the user is trying to make a logic and fetching an answer, right? So the J4 is being multiplied by J4, and if I go one step down, now there is no J4. It is J5 again, then J6 and J7. Why is it so? Because relative reference are those reference when you copy, paste them on your Excel sheet downwards or rightwards or anywhere, it will change their address accordingly. Whereas if you see the absolute example, for example, if I want to calculate 10% of each of the amounts, so I will write a formula like 4 which contains a number and P2 that contains a percentage. So if I multiply these two numbers, I will definitely get the 10 rupees, or you can say $10 for the amount of 100. But if I copy paste this formula, oops, I got the error. Why is it so? Because here on this step, it should not be P3. It should be P2. And if I go to the next step again, it should not be P4. It should be P2. So this means that the user needs to understand that P2 should be used every time when he or she copy and paste this formula downwards. So this P2 must contains a dollar sign. So we called it absolute. Now to make it absolute, what you can do is you either click on the middle or anywhere. So your cursor should be here and press F4 key. $2 sign will be placed by the shortcut key. In some of the laptops, you have to press function key also. First and then press F4 key. In modern laptops, you can just directly press F4. So I have made this cell address as an absolute. Now when I copy paste again this logic downwards, now all the answers are coming correctly. Because you can see that now P2 is not changing anywhere, right? So this is absolute. So the first difference between relative reference and absolute reference is that relative reference does not contain any kind of a dollar sign, whereas absolute contains $2 sign to log the row and columns. And the second difference is that whenever we copy relative reference to any other part of the Excel sheet, it will change the address, but absolute reference will not change the address. It will remain same if I copy and paste it here. For example, it is still the P2, whereas relative reference has been changed to Q11, right? So I hope in this video you have got your answer related to the relative and absolute references. And these are common 6 different types of cell addresses. Let me cover one more logic here in this video. That is, as in previous video, I told you that formula is user made, whereas function is inbuilt by the Microsoft, which contains some set of instructions. Now function, whenever you write any function, for example, if I write a function and I open the round bracket, you can see a small tooltip pop-ups. And if, for example, any function we look up, again the small tooltip pop-up. Basically, this particular thing which you are seeing on your screen as a tooltip, its correct name is function syntax. We see function syntax, and every function syntax has certain arguments to fill. And there are two types of arguments. Some of the arguments are compulsory to be filled by the user correctly, and there are some optional argument as well. On the back end, all optional argument has a default value. Okay. So how to distinguish between a compulsory function argument and a small function argument? So as you can see here in this particular example, if a function has three arguments, first is the user will define the logical test. Second is user will define the value of true and value false. To separate the function argument, we put the comma sign as this is the part of the structure. Okay. So if you break any rule of this function syntax, definitely you will get an error. So first the user will define a logical test value, then value if true, and then value false. And every function of Excel does not contain three arguments. Some of them contain four arguments. Some of them contains only one. Some of them contains two or three. But how to distinguish that which one are compulsory and which one are optional? So when you see a function argument enclosed with the square bracket, as you can see here in the value if true, value if false, they are enclosed with the square brackets. So these are called the optional arguments, where the user can escape this argument without filling anything, and he will get the answer. Whereas the logical test, which does not contain the square bracket, it should be filled mandatory or compulsory to be filled by the user correctly. Right? So let's end this video, and I hope got the topic and the correct concept for cell reference types and the function syntax. Thank you.